Alright YouTube, there's some interesting news coming out of India right now, and the link is in the description to the news article. Basically, what happened was there are, of course, Catholics in India, and like Catholics in many locations, they have these special statues that they talk about crying. These are hoaxes, mostly, or misunderstood physical phenomena. We know that statues don't actually cry and that there is no miracle involved. We know that. It's goofy. But they don't. And the people in India, and if I check, it was Mumbai, were taking these tears from this Jesus statue and drinking it to try to heal afflictions. Sorry, my throat is a little bit clogged today. They were, drinking it, putting it on their skin, bottling it, doing the various things that you've seen at other crying statue locations, whether it's the Virgin Mary, Jesus, some saint, basically venerating these so-called tears from the statue. Well, this man, and I apologize if I mispronounce the name because it's, the name of someone from India, Sanal Edamaruku, and I'm sure I mispronounced that, so I'm sorry. But anyway, he's a rationalist, he's an atheist, and he lives in India. Well, he went and he disproved he proved for a fact that the tears from this statue are actually the result of percolating sewage from leaky pipes. And it was coming up through the statue and coming out through its eyes. It's sewage. It's raw sewage. It's not something people should be drinking like these people at the statue are doing. He's now facing jail time and had death threats and got charged with blasphemy in India for telling the truth. And the truth is that these so-called miraculous tears from the statue are a hoax. That it's sewage that people are ingesting. This is potentially going to cause sickness. It's a big problem. For all we know, there could be radiation in it. We're not sure. But it's a sad testament to religion that they would charge somebody for telling the truth when in reality what they're doing is probably saving lives by preventing people from ingesting toxic waste. It's, from a Western perspective, see, in the United States, you could do this, you wouldn't have a problem. India has freedom of religion, but that freedom doesn't seem to extend to atheists. And it's sad whenever the truth is outlawed, as it seems to be in this case, because they're charging him with a malicious attempt to, undermine religion, because they have a blasphemy law. It sort of doesn't coincide very well with the freedom of religion in their constitution, but whatever. And India, I think, is having these problems because India, as a country, is on the cusp of the first world. It's got a rapidly advancing economy, it's got rapidly advancing technology. What they're doing is they're taking laws from the early 1900s and extending them to the new technological age. Because India, like I said, it's rapidly advancing. They have to make a choice at this point. If they want to be more like the Eastern Third World countries, and they want to be more religious, they want to be staunchly religious but poor, and have the yoke of religion around all people, with the hazard that it could be a religion that they're not even a member of, or they have to choose the Western sort of path. They have to give up the religiosity, perhaps, certainly stop persecuting people who exempt themselves from religion, like they're persecuting this individual, for doing nothing other than telling the cold, hard truth that, yes, the statue's not crying. We know that this doesn't happen. Statues don't cry. There's some physical underlying reason for it, and he discovered the reason, and now he's being charged for it? I would think that the Catholics there, if they were decent individuals, because they know that this man is right, if they were decent individuals and not just looking out for their bottom line, because remember, a church is to make money, that they would give this man an award because their congregation is ingesting toxic waste. That proves that the faith is more important to them than the nitty-gritty physical real-life details of existence on planet Earth. Now, we know that this is the case in many churches. They, look at the flagellants. We got to crucify the flesh because we're sinners and we want to go to heaven. These goofy religious groups, and by the way, the Catholics or the Protestants or Islam are just as goofy as any of the pagan religions that came before thousands of years ago. In some cases practicing the exact same thing as these pagan religions once did. It's goofiness, it's fruity. These are fruit and nut religions. They're no different from any fruity, nutty cult that got spawned in California from the 1940s onward. It's the same thing. They have basically the same beliefs. They're all fruity. They don't have any proof for their beliefs, and they seek to use the law to persecute those who would undermine their fruitiness. That's what we see here. This individual is correct. This is not a crying statue. This is the result of a leaky pipe with sewage in it. That's human feces and urine and all the other good stuff that gets dumped down the drains in Mumbai. But he is being persecuted for it. And ironically and amusingly, the church is blaming him for persecuting them. But he's not persecuting the church. He's not saying Catholicism sucks, haha. He's not defacing the statue with a pentagram. He's not burning their church down. He's not trying to usurp the government and say they can't be Catholics. He's not doing any of these things. All he pointed out was that this statue thing is a lie and that people are drinking feces. It's slightly funny that the Catholic Church over there would rather watch their congregation drink urine and poo, essentially, than admit that they are wrong and give this dude an award of sorts because he actually potentially is staving off an... What do you think's going to happen? People are drinking untreated sewage in a densely populated urban area. Maybe they get AIDS from it. Maybe they get hepatitis C from it. Maybe they get, some other disease from drinking this material. That could happen. It is possible for that to happen. So why would the Catholic Church not simply say, yes, we realize now it's not a real crying statue? They could always use the age-old cop-out of just because you disproved this mythical miracle of ours doesn't mean the rest aren't true. So they could always just cut their losses and say, okay, we'll take the statue and we'll fix the pipe underneath it. It's not a crying statue, people, go home. They have the need for this superstitious nonsense of this idea that Jesus Christ's statue is somehow so holy that it's crying for the people's sins so they can be, healed just by drinking his tears. It's nonsense. Any rational, sane individual understands this is... Even most of the Protestants would be smart enough to realize this is nonsense. And here we have a man being persecuted for telling the truth. It's rather sad. And this is, and I would point this out, Christians and Muslims, especially in the United States and in the Western world at large, often question us atheists. Why do you spend so much time focused on our faith? Why do you attempt to disprove our God? Why do you, undermine our work? Because we don't want to end up like India. Because we're one step away from it at any given time. You look at the United States back in the 50s. We had e pluribus unum on our money, from one many. Then it was one nation under God. You put God on our money back during the Red Scare. It never was on it before that. The nation was not founded with "In God We Trust" on our money. It didn't happen. It wasn't our motto. You put mentions of God in the Pledge of Allegiance for schools so that kids would be raised up and be Christian and not godless atheist commies. That was during the Red Scare. It didn't exist before then. The Pledge of Allegiance didn't mention God. There has been a progressive undermining until very recently. You've got to understand, until very recently, during the Red Scare period especially, there has been a tendency for the Christians to undermine other faiths in this country. And we don't have blasphemy laws, but we had sodomy laws. We had anti-gay laws until the mid to late 1990s, when they were finally struck down. That's not that long ago. I was already almost in my teens at the time. You've got to understand, until the internet revolution, and I've talked about this before, until the internet revolution, and the internet is a very, very secular thing. There are religious sites, there are religious people on it, but it's very, very atheistic. It's not kind to religion. Until that became widespread in the late 1990s, there wasn't a whole lot of traction in the country for secularity. It was becoming progressively more religious. This country's religiosity peaked in the late 1980s. With all the every other show on TV was a televangelist show. Everything was Christian. You couldn't have run a business and not had a manger display at that time. You would have been run out of town on a rail, unless you were Jewish. Then it was okay. If you were a Muslim or a Hindu, why you no celebrate Christmas? Why you have dot on your head? To gay people, why you put it up man's butt? That's the way the country was. Only very recently have we reversed that trend. We could very well slide back and become just like India and have laws that cause individuals, because remember, atheism is not a religion. So it doesn't technically get the same protection in many cases. And people say, well, it requires a lot of faith to be an atheist. Yes, because you have to have faith in your own ability to stave off laws that would disenfranchise you as a member of a group that's no longer protected under the law. There are politicians who believe that atheists shouldn't even be citizens. George Bush Sr., a great example, said, I don't think that atheists should be considered patriots nor citizens, because they didn't believe in God. And he was president. He was the president. That wasn't that long ago. That was the early 1990s. How soon people forget history. Or Ronald Reagan, who, would run roughshod over the atheists if he had had more time and wasn't half demented by his second term. So you have India here, and you have this law, which is a terrible law at best and should definitely be repealed. Why is there no international outcry? If there was a country that was oppressing Christians, the entire Western world would be up in arms. They'd say, you stop that. You leave those poor Christ-fearing people alone. We'll put sanctions on you. But India is oppressing the atheists, and nobody cares. You see a few stories from Great Britain and a few from the United States. That's all. That's all you see. Nobody cares about the atheists. Nobody cares that they're being oppressed because they're godless. They're terrible, immoral sodomites, I guess. This is honestly the way that the majority of people in the United States think. Even the more deist Christians have a problem with outspoken atheists. It's like Facebook. I go on Facebook. I don't have many Christian friends there. Someone says, keep Jesus is the reason for the season. Keep Jesus in Christmas. I reply, keep the soul in solstice, because that's the actual reason for the season, and I get bitched out. Nobody cares that they're posting Jesus content, because everyone there's already Christian. But I dare to be outspoken about atheism, and nobody cares. Everyone thinks I'm an asshole for trying to, trod on their belief system or make them feel bad. And this is happening to a much greater extent, obviously, in India, where simply telling the truth is against the law if the religions don't like it. And it's rather sad. India has to make a choice. Do they want to be modern? Do they want to be Western and wealthy and modern and technologically advanced and stable? Or do they want to slide back into the religiosity of the East? Do they want to be a third world country, perpetually filled with ignorance and nonsense? That's their choice. The United States went through that choice some time ago. We chose the former. We chose to westernize and modernize. And now we're the most powerful nation on earth. Partially because we got rid of religion in the public square to the greatest extent that we could, while still letting people use their own nonsense at home and in their church and scream about gays and atheists. Peace out.